Let's go. What's up, everybody? It is patch day, my favorite day of the month for Marvel Snap, because we get all that good stuff, all that information for the future, like data mine content, which Snap subscribe. We're going to get to that very shortly. We also got some balance changes, and this time around we got new features, which is really exciting because we haven't had much in 2024, so it's nice to see some things drop. So what are those things? Well, I'm going to talk about the balance changes mostly in this video here, but to quickly touch on them, you got the graveyard, which is nice. You can see what was discarded or destroyed in a game while you're playing, which is fantastic. You can also click undo and turn, which is amazing. Just like reset your hand if you want to, provided your opponent hasn't committed to the turn yet. You still have a window of opportunity to reassess your board state if you accidentally clicked end turn. Very nice. And then you got the cosmetics, where you can change the borders and the infinity splits and all that good stuff to the way that you want, which is going to be really cool. I'm excited to see what people cook up for the cool variants and different combinations of borders and splits. So it's going to be really fun. But let's talk about the balance changes real quick. We're going to go over them real fast. Here it is, right here. If you just want to check it out and then dip, I totally understand. But if you want to hear me talk about what I think about these changes, stay tuned. And definitely stay tuned for data mines later, man. Cannot wait. Let's get to these balance changes. All right, let's talk about my girl ELSA first. I got to do the Marvel Snap preview for this card, and it was broken. A lot of people were sleeping on it. I tried telling everybody, wake up, this card's broken. At the time, she had +3 scaling, and she had this ability, or very similar to it. So they kind of reverted her, but she's now a 3/3, and she's still got the +2 power scaling, so she's not as good as she once was, but she's definitely, you know, a force to be reckoned with now, I think, in bounce decks especially. Yeah, I think it's a pretty exciting change. So essentially, each card you play to fill your side of a location gains +2 power. So that means things like Beast, you can use Beast. It's going to fill that location, get the power, bounce everything out of there. It's going to be great. Brood is not going to get the power, because Brood would be the second card that you played at that location, right? If you're gonna actually summon the Broodlings, like, I mean, you could play Brood as the 4th card, but why are you doing that anyways? But the Broodlings, or at least the last Broodling that fills that location, that won't either. So it's kind of a downer for Brood, because you have to actually play the card, and it's got to be in the 4th quadrant. So you could do stuff like Jeff on that 4th quadrant, or you could use Mysterio, because that is actually a played card. Those illusions count. So that could trigger it as well, which is a pretty significant buff. So downer for Brood, because that could have been a really cool maybe surfer list with Brood and ELSA and whatnot, but pretty good for Beast, pretty good for bounce, and I expect to see a little bit more ELSA in the meta game. Let's go. She was due. All right, let's get to the next one. Next up is Mantis. So Mantis got reworked, I want to say, almost kind of keeping the Guardians of the Galaxy theme, where you have an on reveal ability, and if you correctly guess where your opponent plays in that given turn, there is a bonus that you get. Previously, she was taking a card from your opponent's deck. Now she's copying one of them into your hand, one of those cards that was played across from her location, which is pretty interesting, because you could steal some really significant things, man. If they've been buffing something up, like Kitty Pryde, maybe, you know, they keep bringing that back, that Kitty Pryde, you're gonna snag that Kitty Pryde off the Mantis play. It's gonna retain all that buffed up power. Another one is like Deadpool, or as the developers suggested, Venom. Venom can get really big. You get one of those Venoms, that's gonna be great. The only problem I see with this is it's kind of risky. It's not always going to work against every deck, and it's a bit of a tempo loss, because you're not discounting the card when it goes back to your hand. You're not necessarily getting a buff on the card over your opponent. So what I think of is like Mirage is going to give you a card from your opponent's hand. It's going to give that +2 power instantly, which is an advantage over your opponent's card. So this one, they still got that same card, and it might work with their deck more. But I think it's still an interesting change to Mantis. I like to see her a little bit cheaper too. She used to be a 1/2. I kind of still wish she was a 1/2. I don't know why she's a 2/2. She was a 2/3. Now she's 2/2. Time will tell. Maybe it's actually a better weapon than I'm guessing here. But then you got, you know, synergies with Collector, Devil Dino. That's pretty nice. Jean Grey is always interesting to pair with the Guardians of the Galaxy cards, because you can kind of really predict where they're going to play that card, and Mantis can reap the rewards. So time will tell, but I'm not too hyped about this one. Speaking of ones that I'm not overly hyped about, we got Cable changing from a 3-4 to a 2-3. Doesn't do a whole lot, man, but it's nice to see Cable come back to life a little bit. He used to be a 2-2 and now he's a 2-3. I think he was kind of fun to play with before as a 2-2, but yeah, I don't know, man. It's all right. It's gonna change it up, make him a little bit more relevant. Like I was saying, that Thief deck could really come together. Kind of hurts Blob, right? Taking cards away from Blob if Cable was ever to become prevalent. But overall, pretty negligible change. I'm not overly thrilled about this one, but it's nice to see them buffing these kind of weaker cards that they nerfed previously, right? Okay, let's go to the next one. They changed MBAKU, but he's not good. He's still not good. He's basically the same. It's just he's going to go to your lowest power location, which could literally lose you the game. It's similar to Proxima, right? Same tag, but it could jump to Bar with no name. That would be awful. So let's hope that doesn't happen, but it could jump to Iron Man. So maybe there's some shenanigans where you leave like an Iron Man location. I was saying that with Proxima, I think it could be legit. Maybe with MBAKU, it's a thing now too. But the problem with MBAKU is you still draw him and then it's kind of a dead card unless you cycle him with Lockjaw. So it's kind of a buff to Lockjaw a little bit, maybe, sort of, kind of. I don't know. I'm stretching it. He's probably still going to be one of the worst cards in Snap, but it's nice to see. I don't hate it. Next up is the big one. We got Leech. Obliterated? Maybe. Time will tell. Going back to an on-reveal card, which is definitely good for Leech because you like to cheat out Leech as early as possible now. It's not just a turn 6 trigger. So Lockjaw upside used to be very good with Lockjaw, except now he's not hitting every single card in your opponent's hand. He's only hitting on reveals, which thankfully for Leech, there's a lot of on reveals in this game. In fact, there's a lot more than there are ongoing abilities or triggered abilities. But yeah, I don't know. Time will tell if he's a good meta counter, I guess. He's kind of like got that Cosmo vibe, but just shutting down those turn 6s, which he still does very efficiently. So I could still see him being a problem. The devs seem to think this is going to be a cure. It's definitely good against Shang-Chi, Alioth, even bounce decks, these sorts of things that are waiting to play those big on reveals on the final turn, or even turn 5 now, because if you cheat out Leech a little bit early, gonna be nasty. It's still gonna hit a lot of cards in your opponent's hand. So I'm still a little bit worried about this card. I think he's still gonna be super annoying. But time will tell with Leech if this is actually a significant nerf or not. I kind of wish it had kept the trigger and just been on reveals. Maybe that would murder him way too much, but he is a pretty frustrating card for a lot of folks, I would say. So, oof. And then we got YONDU changing 1-2 still, but on reveal destroy the lowest cost card in your opponent's deck. So not just a random card, it's going to be the lowest cost, which could be bad because that could be a Rock of Subterraneans out or something like that. And then you're actually thinning the deck for your opponent, which is a significant problem. I think in general, this is a nerf, but I think what they're doing is setting up for some future cards. In particular, I was looking at Baron Zemo. So what you can do now is you can play YONDU early enough to destroy the lowest cost card in your opponent's deck. And if you don't know what Baron does, he's going to snag the lowest cost card in your opponent's deck and put it on your side of the board. He's going to steal it. So if we eliminate the lowest with YONDU, then the second lowest is what Baron's going to take, essentially. Or it's still going to be whatever is the lowest at that given moment in time. I think that could be pretty legit. You pair this with like Wong or something, we could do some real crazy shenanigans where you're actually stealing a significant amount of power from your opponent's deck, as well as destroying any other options they might have wanted. But the problem is you're probably going to help them out more often than not. So I don't know if that's actually going to come together. It's a bit of a weird change, but I kind of like it because it does take out the randomness from YONDU. Now you could use this against Thanos to get rid of a stone so he doesn't get to 20 power. It also kind of sucks when you're playing with Null in a destroy list because now your YONDU's not going to give that Null as much power as previously. So it's a bit of a bummer, but I think maybe there's some future value with YONDU. I'm hoping anyways. And lastly, we got MIEK. So MIEK got a pretty significant buff. I would say possibly one of the best buffs in this patch. And that's because now when you discard a card, this gains +1 power. It's not an end of turn trigger. And he can move next turn. And it's not random. It's where you want. So all of a sudden now you can move MIEK pretty much wherever you want as long as you have discarded a card on the prior turn. So he's almost like a crazy vision hybrid for discard. I think this is going to be sick. I think this is a must own for discard decks and going to be the best one drop for discard, period. You can use Storm to flood a location, and then you can use MIEK to move there, stay there, still get a bunch of power from all the cards that you're discarding, and it's just going to be win-win. You can use this with Dracula and Invisible Woman now because the end of turn tag on MIEK is gone. So end of game will still register as a discarded card and buff MIEK. So man, this is huge. I think this is crazy for discard, and this is going to be fantastic. He's going to be very competitive in those lists. And I'm excited to see what this little guy can do, especially because he was a Series 4 release, the last known one in 2024. Anyways, that's my takes on the bounce. I hope you guys enjoyed this patch. We're going to be talking about data mines very soon, so stay tuned. All right, I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.